Hi, my name is Tanya and welcome to Utility Jane. Join me as we bake gluten-free sourdough. It's always interesting. Okay, so we are going to start with the gluten-free cinnamon rolls, and here I have 2.5 cups of gluten-free self-raising flour. I have raw sugar, some salt, some psyllium husk powder. Seems to be the thing that makes gluten-free baking much easier. And I have my sourdough starter, which is fed a little bit ago and not as bubbly, but it works out fine. I am going to use 1 cup. It's always a worry with gluten-free baking about getting enough rise. And I'm just going to get that mixing and crack an egg. I'm going to start by adding a cup of milk. Now have the egg go in, some vanilla and butter. It's quite a sticky dough, as you can see. I'm just leaving it to mix. Every time I use a sourdough or bake something with sourdough, it's an experiment every time. And I learn a lot, really. It's just trial and error, just like everything. And as long as it's edible, I don't think anything is a failure. So I'm going to get this all down in the bowl. I'm going to butter a glass bowl. I always love to check to see how much air bubbles are in it later on. So I like to put them in glass bowls and get that mix in and covered and just let it rise and see what happens. Like I said, this is probably, I think it was the second time I have made this. So it is my sourdough journey, and we are a small family, so we do not go through a big lot of food. So always learning though. And there we go. Now let's get on to the pizzas. I do these jars and have all the dry ingredients ready to go, and I usually have about 5 in the pantry, so it makes life really easy. My daughter can throw one in and just add some things. So we've got the jar, I've got an egg, I'm adding olive oil, I have some warm water I am putting into a bowl, and then I am going to add my gluten-free sourdough starter, and I tend to use a cup. I'm not quite sure, I really don't follow anyone's instructions. I did watch a lot of videos of sourdough, but there isn't a big lot on gluten-free, so I've just worked out my own way. Now, in this occasion, I'm using maple syrup to put in the water to add that bit of food, and there it is. Already looking bubbly. So I whisk up my egg, and I'm going to put this jar in. Now this has gluten-free flour, it has the psyllium husk, salt, and almond flour. A little bit of almond flour, because I find that the gluten-free flour mixes, they just don't have any body to them. So I tend to put in something, whether it is almond flour, which is just my almonds left over from making my almond milk, or some oat flour. Now I just have that going. I tend to like to use the other attachment, not this dough hook. I don't know, I don't like it. I have to keep pushing it down. I'm not sure if that's the same way when you are baking with wheat flour. or mixing wheat flour. Here he is. It's come together really nicely. It would probably, if anything, it was a little dry. I tend to use a bit more liquid in them now, and it is a stickier consistency to work with, but I think it comes out better after baking. Not that this was inedible, it was absolutely fine. Put it into a glass jar, cover with a little bit of olive oil, and get a silicone wrap over it. I love these, they're so easy to maintain. And there we go. And this is how I do the pizza bases. I have these big jars from coconut oil, and they seem to fit the perfect amount of ingredients for my pizza bases. So we've got the gluten-free self-raising flour. I tend to just use the self-raising flour. I don't buy a plain. This is quite hard to come by. I have to buy it in smaller bags, and when the supermarket has it on special, I buy up big because it is quite expensive. Everyone who is gluten-free knows that it is inexpensive to eat gluten-free, but not as expensive if you can make it yourself. Okay, so we've got the flour, we've got the psyllium husk, almond flour in. Now I'm adding salt. All the lids go on, they go into the pantry, and it is such a quick and easy way. Okay, I'm going to feed my sourdough starters, and I don't know, I tend to not have a discard. They just sit there, and I feed them, and I put them into a clean bottle. I was concerned here that I didn't have enough starter, so I just put some out of the other bottle in and just fed them up. They both come out very strong. Like, look at that. That is just great. I was really worried about starting this journey, but it has been quite easy. You know, if I'm not using it, and through summer when it rises quite fast, I put them in the fridge, but during winter I can leave them out on the counter and just slowly use them. So if you are worried about starting this, I suggest just try it. Just try it, because you can put it in the fridge and they will just sit there. You know, get them out every now and then, and I keep them quite dry when they are in the fridge. I find that that works quite well. Now, this is the cinnamon bun. It is looking glossy and really, really good. Pizza is slowly rising. Here we go. It's a little bit later again, and look at the air bubbles in it. I was fascinated. And the dough is rising. There's bubbles in underneath there. So gluten-free is a different thing to bake with. Now I'm going to get some butter and some brown sugar and cinnamon and make the paste to put inside the cinnamon roll. I mean, it's just like everything, and until you try it, you know, and then you realize that it's really not that hard, and that you can kind of talk yourself out of trying these things. But like I said, nothing is a waste unless it's inedible. And if you can eat it, well, then it's not a waste, and it's great trying new things. Okay, so I have touched it and the cinnamon roll dough, and it is quite sticky. So I'm going to put it on parchment because I do not want it sticking to my counter, and I want to be able to roll it as easy as possible. So, but it is airy and absolutely beautiful. I think last time I did make it too dry, and I didn't get the rise that this had. So I'm just going to roll it out. As good a rectangle as you can. And just thin, and I'm just going to bend that in just to get that flatter edges. Roll that back in, keeping it to as neat a rectangle as I can. There we go. I am so happy with this. Okay, I'm going to add butter because I wasn't quite sure how dry it would be. So adding an extra butter and putting on this brown sugar cinnamon butter mixture and just spreading it out. There we go. Now rolling it up as tightly as possible. This is where I found the brown paper to be so helpful, that I didn't have to touch it and have it stick to my fingers, and it just rolled off the paper so good. I'm just going to straighten up that end so I can cut pieces. Use up that brown paper I had rolling the top and put it in a dish. Just cut these into 4. Seemed like a good size for the pan that I have. Get them out and get them in there. As you can see, there's still bubbles, but it's quite sticky. And 4 seems to fit perfectly. A little bit extra butter because why not? I wanted quite a caramel liquid and plenty to go across the pastry or the scroll, depends where you come from. And extra cinnamon for the top. And here they are, looking quite small. And we'll get onto the pizzas. While they sit and rise, the cinnamon rolls sit and rise, I'm going to get on with this. I always make my dog a little pizza. So this is me making him his pizza. He's walking around the background. He knows that this is happening. He goes crazy for the smell of sourdough when I have it out and I'm baking with it. And so I always make him a little pizza because we add onion to ours and he's not allowed to have onion. So I make a little one for him. He has his own little one with just tomato and cheese, sometimes some capsicum, but he really loves that. Now I'm just going to roll this out because, like I said, it was probably on the drier side. Now I do bake them with a bit more liquid, but this was fine. This was delicious anyway. I think it's really hard to mess this up so badly that it's inedible. There we go, now we've got one, now we're on to the second one. And this is just making life easier, rolling it out rather than squishing it out onto the tray. And here we go, in the tray, and then I just squish out to the sides as far as I can. We all have differing likes in the thickness of our pizza bases. I like a thin pizza base. My daughter likes the thicker crust, so we vary in between. Now, I've put the pizza bases across to sit and rise for a little bit, let them rest, and I've put the cinnamon rolls or scrolls in the oven. And now I'm making up some pizza sauce, which I've used passata and some olive oil, some dried basil, some seasoned salt, always sweet paprika, some salt and some sugar. This is my go-to. Oh, and some garlic, crushed garlic, just out of the jar, and just stir that around and get it all mixed. And I like to let it sit for a minute and the basil and all the flavors go through. And then I've got our go-to toppings, which is usually capsicum, onion, and olives, a quick pizza night, and some hot salami. Just get all these sliced up, and because we all like them, I just put them all into a colander together, mix them up, that way you have them evenly dispersed across the pizzas. Makes life really easy. I'm going to slice up the olives. I love this brand, and I cannot get a sliced olive. They are whole, so I slice them myself. And they are delicious, as you can see. I am now going to slice up an onion. Those all in the colander and get them mixed around. Break up the onion so that it all cooks evenly. They have no water left on them, so from when they were washed. Got some hot salami. And look at these. I was amazed at how they came out. It was just, oh, I was so happy. Now we've got the pizzas going in. I par bake the bases. Ah, look at this. Now I mixed up some vanilla icing. These have cooled just a bit, and I'm going to, they've come away from the paper. There is some syrup at the bottom. They have risen beautifully, and I am just so happy. Now the bases are par cooked, just so that they don't end up too doughy. It is a heavier dough, so it takes a bit more to cook. Now I'm going to divide up the pizza sauce between the two. We love a lot of sauce. Get those spread across, and we will divide up the onion, capsicum, and olives across both of them. My daughter doesn't like salami. She likes a vegetarian pizza, so I only put salami on one. Top with cheese. I had grated this earlier in the week. I like to grate a big container and mix the different types of cheese. And here we go, into the oven. And done. Look at this. I was quite happy. I was concerned about the mix being a little dry, but they have turned out beautifully. Love to eat these with a little side salad. But let's cut into this cinnamon scroll. There we go. They have turned out so good. For gluten-free, I cannot keep stressing it is a different thing to cook gluten-free than it is with wheat flour. Now I'm going to add some of the icing, vanilla icing, and it is just cutting through beautifully. Let's taste. I actually couldn't stop eating this. This was so good. And not to waste any of the icing. And I actually cut myself another piece. I actually cut my daughter a piece and we ate this together. Thank you for spending some time with me this afternoon while I have tackled gluten-free sourdough. I hope to see you in the next one. Bye for now.